Hi, in today's lecture we're going to be continuing our study of the Cold War in American history, and we're going to be looking at it through the lens of the interstate highway system. We will be looking at it as a case study in how the Cold War has influenced domestic policy in the United States. So we'll start off with a little bit of background knowledge. So in the eyes of the United States during the 1950s and 60s, the Soviet Union is its greatest threat. The Soviets and global communism are seen as this monolithic and ever-expanding force that's causing upheaval in the world and is challenging them on the world stage. We see the Soviets solidifying their control in Eastern Europe with the Iron Curtain, and then we see the fall of China and the Korean War, with communism seemingly spreading throughout Asia. And then the US starts to get concerned with Latin America. And then when the Soviet Union eventually gets a nuclear bomb, their threat level increases by a lot. So with the threat of long-range nuclear weapons and communist countries being used as staging grounds against the U.S. militarily, Washington comes to the conclusion that the U.S. must take an active role to contain the Soviet threat, both abroad and at home. So that takes us to the interstate highway system. I know we all have this perception about the highways of them being like just civilian, like you're just going down the freeway, but I want us to take a moment to think about them in this Cold War context. They came about thanks to President Eisenhower with the Interstate Highway Act of 1956 during the height of the Cold War. And Eisenhower, who's a guy with a big military background, he explicitly states in his address to Congress the military purpose of these highways. If the U.S. were ever to have like a military conflict with the Soviet Union, and the continental United States are threatened, you really need a military infrastructure to rapidly deploy troops or potentially evacuate civilians from a nuclear strike. And the current highways at the time were just not going to cut it. So he spearheads this major federal funding project to get these highways built. Over 90% of the funds used to create this is kicked up by the federal government. And it can just really be used as a perfect example of how Cold War threats, national security threats during the Cold War really shaped U.S. policy at the time.